Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and today we're going to talk about The Bride with White Hair, directed by Ronnie Yu. This is a tragic love story between Yi Hung, a Wu-Dang disciple, and Ni Chung, a killer from an evil cult led by conjoined brother and sister Chi Wu Shuang. After Ni Chung leaves the cult to be with Yi Hung, a misunderstanding makes them enemies. Feeling betrayed, Ni Chung undergoes a stunning transformation as she clashes with all of Wu-Dang's sect. So, all right. So, what? I know that this was you guys' first time seeing this. So, what did you think?
It was my first time watching the movie, and I really enjoyed it. And I guess, yeah, I mean, there was some unexpected parts cropping up, mostly in the form of nudity, which I was totally not expecting. But other than that, I think, yeah, the movie was very enjoyable. I definitely recommend it to people. It's it's a bit of a bittersweet story, I think. And it's the sort of classic wuxia misunderstandings leading to bloodshed and everybody dying type of thing. And it's typical, it's melodramatic, but I did enjoy it, and yeah, that's all that's important at the end of the day, I think.
This was my first time seeing the movie also, and I enjoyed watching the movie. I was pretty shocked when the nudity showed up, and the sex scene was shocking to me too. I wasn't expecting that, but I thought it was a beautifully shot film. I loved the plot of the film, and the ending left me wondering, but then I figured it out. But we'll get to that
Okay.
later.
And
But I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the visuals of this movie. It was a great looking movie, and like the ending. The ending was I really liked the ending. I liked it. There's an ambiguity to it that I thought worked for me. I could see a lot of people being frustrated with it though.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite movies from this period. I think it's a great film, and I love that it's so surreal and I like the way the music feels in it. I love pretty much everything about the movie. But I want to apologize for everybody because I think I failed to mention all of the rampant nudity and not rampant nudity, but the very sensual nature of the movie. On the DVD version, it says like right on the cover like an erotic something or other. There's like a line in there to indicate what you're about to get into. But it kind of slipped my mind that I should probably mention it to people in advance. But so I do.
It was still
apologize.
very tame compared to things like Game of Thrones or whatever
I was
most
just
people
thinking
watch.
that.
So maybe for like a wuxia movie, it's shocking for us because we may not necessarily expect it, but the actual nudity is very tame by modern standards.
And while he's not here today, Elliot, who sometimes participates in these discussions, sent me a note. And so his note basically said that he really enjoyed the movie up through the middle part, but at the point of the gratuitous sex scenes is where it went downhill for him. And he also found the ending a little hard to believe because the cult leaders are able to just kill so many people so easily, but they seem to be not able to do that early in the movie, in his opinion. So I just wanted to get Elliot's opinion out there. I don't know. I think what I really like about the movie again is like it's very surreal. It doesn't it doesn't really matter. It's not the kind of movie where I was terribly focused on the fight choreography and making sure that everybody's sort of performing at a really high level physically. It's almost more about like the poetic stances and the graceful movement across the screen. So, but yeah, I don't know what were there any parts of the movies aside from we can probably get to the nudity in a little bit, but were there any parts of the movie that you guys didn't like?
No, actually, I enjoyed it all the way through. I can't remember any part of the movie where I was disappointed or anything. I thought it was well done.
Yeah, I can't say I was disappointed either in any part of the movie. I thought it flowed really well. It didn't go downhill anywhere for me. I thought it was a great plot all the way through, and I believe the ending. of the story didn't leave any plot holes for me. I figured that because the raw emotion that was emitting from the conjoined twins, that's what was able to propel them to kill a whole entire sect without any other help. So to me, the ending was fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the story makes emotional sense, and I think that's what it was aspiring to be. I mean, it's kind of playing as this tragic love story, and so getting into the, military logistics of a romance isn't always going to be that practical.
And I do think that, even if we do consider it from a very logical kung fu point of view, it does make sense still. The elders of the great clans were mentioned as all being aged now and barely being able to hold a sword anymore. So it makes sense that they wouldn't be able to fight back if they were to be attacked. But I think one of the issues that Elliot raised was that, well, in that case, why didn't Ji Wuxiang attack by themselves? Well, I don't know if to refer to themselves, himself, herself, themselves. Yeah, just the conjoined twins are a bit difficult for pronouns. Like they could have just attacked at any point in the movie, and a lot of the plot would then have been unnecessary. But I don't think that's necessarily the case, because maybe this is just because from a Chinese point of view, there's the whole idea of seniority, and they were raised and they grew up with the intimidation that these great clan elders are unrivaled in the martial world, and they were personally captured and punished by them and then exiled. When I don't, what was the crime they committed anyway? Well, why were they ejected from?
I think they were just ejected for being involved with the cult. In the subtitles, just said the cult.
I think it had something to do with their parents being involved in the cult, and then they also got entwined in it. So they killed the parents and then sent them out or exiled them. That's what I got from the subtitles. Kind of had to read between the lines.
So it's just that maybe they were intimidated just by the reputation of the elders more than anything else, rather than any physical proof that they would be unable to conquer them with martial might, as it were.
And it's also possible that there was something we didn't see where they might have achieved a level of mastery before the attack. But I almost feel like that it's I didn't think it was terribly important part of the movie, so I didn't really focus on it. But I can sort of see where Elliot was coming from with that point. But Dion, you had mentioned something else about the ending being a little unclear, and I was curious what that might have been, since we're talking about the ending.
Well, for me, it was what happened between the two. Where did she go? I don't know. I guess from the beginning, I was expecting him to give the flower to the bride with white hair, and then everything would turn out fine. But that obviously doesn't happen. And like Adam said, the ending's very ambiguous. And then so for a while, I was thinking, well, that's no way to end a movie. But then I realized that there's a sequel, and you have to see the sequel.
Yeah. And the sequel came out soon after the first one. But
right.
I think also the flower only blooms every 20 years. So basically he had to go and wait at the flower. And we're supposed to maybe be left wondering how things are going to resolve when he gets the flower. I can tell you the one. Oh, what were you going to say?
I have a question about that. So when we meet him, it's only 10 years into the flower, and it still has 10 more years to go.
I don't know, because the men say that it has like 4 hours before the flower blooms, so maybe it's already been 10 by the time he's gone there in the first place.
Okay.
Kenny,
I gotta say, I'm very impressed by the ancient timekeeping that they had back in China. They know the blooming time of a flower up to that very hour.
Yeah. But I don't know if it's about to bloom, or if that was just them just saying stuff, and it's because I can't remember exactly from the sequel what the time frame is. But in the sequel, I can tell you, their issues are not resolved at the start of the movie, and she is not a happy camper, and so And in fact, actually, I think the movie starts. It either starts like 10 or 20 years after the events at the end of this movie. Um, but I don't know. At some point, maybe we'll do the sequel and we'll be able to talk about it. But because the sequel, I think the sequel is pretty good too, and you get to see. Dion and I were talking about this between the podcasts, but you get you don't get to see a whole lot of her as the bride with white hair in this one. She transforms like 15 minutes before the movie ends, and the sequel, she's the bride with white hair the whole time. So you kind of get it. You get to experience that character in that state a little bit more.
Yeah, it was interesting as the last movie I did with you guys was Web of Death, and that also had the same kind of dynamic of the woman may or may not be trustworthy, and the guy decides not to trust her, and it leads to massive death all around.
And that was Wudang Sect too. That was also Wudang Sect that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was...
yeah. You're right. It is the same sect even. So yeah, there was a lot of parallels going on between the movies. I mean, they were very different movies, but I found that interesting.
It seems like a very popular, writing hook that they use is that the main character, believes the lies of the enemies rather than trust someone that he should implicitly believe in. Maybe it's a lesson there is that to have more faith in people sometimes.
Yeah, that does seem to be the message.
Well, yeah, and you get a lot of these stories where there's like a misunderstanding between two lovers that leads to this, really, really big grudge that results in bloodshed, and so I think that's definitely you kind of get that in what is it, Return of Condor Heroes? You have that. And you have it here as well, but yeah, I don't know. I think I thought the ending. What was interesting to me is the ending is the last 30 minutes of the movie is that scene at Wudang, that big confrontation scene. So it's really like it's a pretty long climax when you think about it. Like just 30 minutes of fighting and drama. And I was amazed too because I think I in preparation for the podcast I rewatched the movie like 3 times, and I watched it with the director's commentary, so I think I got a good sense of the flow of events in the film, and it's amazing to me how much they really are able to do in that. It was like an hour and 26 minutes. Because you see the characters from when they're very young. And it's not very quick. Like there's a good 10 or 15 minutes that deals with just the Yi Hung character when he's a kid. Then to sort of go from there to him being sort of a rebellious sect disciple at Wudang, and then they very quickly have to get this love story going. But they also have to let you know about the evil cult, and she has to get kicked out of the evil cult, and it's like all these things have to happen, and it all very smoothly comes together. And
it does.
I gotta say, it comes more smoothly than, say, kind of the White Lotus did in the sort of following the growth of a child aspect. Like this one, the transitions, maybe just because it's more the humor is a different brand of humor here. It just seemed to make things flow a little bit better.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this movie has such a different feel from that one. That one's sort of more rooted in that older style of the camera kind of lingering on the characters a little bit more or something. And this one, everything feels like it's in motion. And so that scene where they go from reprimanding him when he's like 10 or however old he's supposed to be, and then the camera pans and he's now like an adult being reprimanded by the same guy. I thought that was like a very interesting transitional scene in the film. And there's like a lot of stuff like that in this movie. The movie is very surreal. The camera angles are very unusual. The sets are all very strange, and everything's pretty much all, with the exception of like 1 or 2 dusk scenes that look like they're done on a set. Everything is pretty much done at night. Were you gonna say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say. I mean, going on that, I thought it did a really good job of establishing Cho Yee-heng's his personality and his character and growing up. I thought the movie really handled that well. I had a good grasp of the character throughout the whole thing, which is important because it all comes down to that moment of him deciding whether or not to trust there. So his character is very important.
Well, one of the interesting things about the young Yu-hung character is that it was played by a girl, and the reason why the director said was because he felt that Leslie Chung has like a pretty face, and so he thought a girl would be a more appropriate than a boy.
And I think she actually goes on to have a pretty decent career in acting as she grew up as well, I think.
What was it? Oh, the actress in that?
Yeah, the child actor.
I don't know who that was, but it wouldn't.
I recognize the face. I've seen her in
Layla Tong, I believe is the name.
Yeah, she's been. If her face has stayed the same from her child state to her adult state, then she's been in a lot of things.
Okay, that's interesting.
I'm very certain I know who she is, but I can't be 100% sure.
And also, me and Kenny have been reading the book that this is based on, and we'll be talking about that separately. But it's interesting how different his character is too from the book. In this version, he's much more rebellious.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess I've only read the first 3 chapters of the book, and he comes across as very rigid as a character, if that makes sense. Whereas here, he's like really carefree and like, oh, I don't want to do anything. If I can get away with just sleeping all day, that'd probably be the best thing ever type of character.
And he's got like the tuft of hair coming over the eye, and he's just very sort of like, he's like like a rebellious teen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very different. It's very different from the book, and it really the book is very complicated. There's a ton of characters in the book. Like Kenny's seen my notes where I've just been writing down all the characters from the book, and I have like it's got to be over 20 names at this point of major characters.
A lot of
yeah, and in the movie they really simplify it. I think to the benefit of the storyline, but yeah. So I don't know. But what was what did you guys think of the conjoined twins as the sort of the bad guys in this movie?
I thought that was an interesting plot twist. I kind of figured there was something going on with those two since they were at the very first scene when you meet the cult, and it's just he comes in really fast on Brigitte Lin's character, and then she's there all of a sudden. I was like, well, how did she get there that fast? It was just like, well, I know.
Oh, when they're like back to back and they keep swapping to talk to her. Yep.
And you don't see them actually do the swapping, so it's just like you kind of shift in and shift out, and it's like, wow, okay, so something's really going on there. And then I don't know, somewhere in that scene, I realized they're either shape-shifting, he's shape-shifting into her and back and forth, or they're conjoined somewhere. So it was really weird.
Yeah,
and I actually thought they were shape-shifting. I thought it was like one of those techniques, because there was a dancing scene where, just before they were introduced, where the man with the mask on is dancing, and suddenly you got a pair of breasts in your face there, a woman's breasts. Right?
I think they were trying to make you wonder that. I think they wanted you to think that. I think that's why they put that scene in, because I felt when the first time I saw this movie, I had the same exact reaction. I thought it was like a character who could become a man and a woman, like that, and it was doing what the guy with the breasts did. But I love the way that they reveal that they're conjoined twins. It takes a while before you really understand exactly what's going on. And I love the different personalities of the twins too. One's very brooding and like deeply in love with the Ni Chung character, and the other one is just she seems to delight in his misery to an extent. Like it's a very interesting pairing.
Yeah, but we've thrown around the term gratuitous nudity, but a lot in this podcast. But I feel like the reveal of them being twins was like completely non-gratuitous. That was like, oh, that was a use of nudity to good effect in the movie. So I felt that served a purpose. It was an interesting way to reveal the point.
No, I would agree with you, and also they had such an unusual look. It just was. I mean, it's meant to be very sort of surreal and disturbing. It's you know, there's kind of like a horror element to the movie.
Yeah.
You know, there's sort of, you know, they're sort of like the you know, they're very, this is like a very sinister cult. It's not just like an unorthodox sect. They're extremely creepy in how
It was implied that they drink blood, right?
I don't know if that was. I think it was blood. It almost didn't matter, just because even if that wasn't blood, everything else they were doing seemed so shady, and you know, so yeah, so but it could have been blood. I've never been 100% clear on that. And then the whole thing when she leaves them, they make her walk over the rocks and the glass, and and beat her mercilessly, and then you know, and then you know and that sort of, to me, that scene's a really crucial moment in the movie, because you know that sort of justifies a lot of her anger at Wudang sect when she makes sort of this big sacrifice to be with him, and then you know he doesn't trust her. So
Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, the gauntlet scene was good because the way, you know, she first steps out, she stares everyone down, and everyone backs off, and it's like, oh, this is going to be relatively easy, and then she gets shoved from behind, and everything kind of goes bad. But
that
added a lot of.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say that scene I thought really showed, you know, her abilities as an actress too, because she just you know, just like with one look, like it's like, I mean, I realize that the reaction from the other characters is important too, but she gives that one look and it's like there's a wave that just sort of, and then they you know, they don't really even start beating on her till somebody sneaks up from behind and whacks her on the ground. So she has like this real commanding presence.
Yeah, and I think it showed to her character's strength also, to the fact that when she was knocked to the ground, she at first was going to crawl, but something in her woke up, and she squeezed the hot coal and then stood up and put her hands up and walked out. So I'm glad that she got up and walked out on her own 2 feet instead of crawling out. That really showed to her strength as a person.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, as you guys said, it really, you know, gives her resentment later a lot of power that she went through that, and I'd say they kind of give Cho Yee-hyung some reason to, you know, act the way he does, from the standpoint that he has been the guy who's been the, like, you know, he said he's kind of the bad boy who always you know, is off doing his own thing, and then, you know, his master gets beheaded and everything, and he suddenly kind of feels with this remorse. It's like, oh, what have I done? And it puts him in a spot where you can see he actually would side with his clan, just because he's kind of racked with this guilt for having allowed things to go so badly. I mean, he was still wrong, but you can kind of see how he got to that point of being wrong.
Well, and I think too, you know, it's he's still kind of, in the end, it seems like he's still torn. Like he's just killed, like his. I mean, you know, we're spoiling everything, but he just killed his whole sect, and he doesn't, you know, he's still calling out her name. He's not seeking her blood. So
no.
I would like to believe that he would have trusted her no matter what, except for the fact that his dying brother accused her of coming in. I think he would have stood up to everybody, except for when the dying brother had said that it was her that came in and slaughtered everybody. And he loved his brother dearly, and so it was pitting the brother's word against her word, and he eventually went with the brother.
Well, and also, I mean, you know, she did end up doing all the terrible, like once things went south, she started hacking people in half with her whip. So so, you know, Uh, but speaking of which, I was curious what people's thoughts on the fight sequences were, because they this isn't like Swordsman 2 style fight choreography. It was a little different than that.
What we really get from the fight scenes is that the Ni Chang is a very powerful martial artist. Like a blunt whip is able to like tear people into 8 chunks. In the first scene where she's shown fighting against the army that's been sent to hunt down the peasants. She's massacring people left and right. It shows that she's a very intimidating as far as fighters go, I think, and we don't really get much other fight scenes besides with when obviously there's the end sequence, but there's also when Yi Hang is showing off his sword skills a few times throughout the movie, and I think those are always really well shown. I mean, they were quite generic as far as moves go. Like, there wasn't anything stand out about them, but I thought they were performed very crisply and cleanly, and with the air of someone who's used to martial arts rather than someone who's been taken on just because his pretty face, if that makes sense.
Well, in this movie, there were a lot of Leslie Chung had a lot of doubles in this movie, and the director was very transparent about that. He picked Leslie Chung because of his acting ability and his look, and because he wanted somebody who was like James Dean. And so that tracking shot where they're following him around, and it looks like it's him because the camera, they don't change cameras, but the camera kind of moves to the side a little bit, and I guess that gave them time to bring in like a bunch of different doubles for him during that sequence. And I don't know about Bridget Lin in this movie. I know that the sequence when she got beat in the gauntlet, they didn't use a double. I imagine they might have at certain points, but I think a lot of her stuff too was more about the stances and things like that than the sort of the fight choreography. But it's and I don't know if this information is correct, but I think that the action director was Philip Kwok.
It was.
It was? Okay, yeah. So, who, I mean, definitely, knows a thing or two about fight choreography, but the director really wanted something that was more poetic and operatic in the way that it appeared than just like swordplay. So I think that it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was to say they and I think they successfully conveyed that because we have on one hand like Ni Chang, who is a wolf girl, and she's been raised by wolves, and with the way she uses her whip, it shows that ferocious side to her, the beast-like nature in which she just ruthlessly tears people into well, to her it looks like these aren't even people; they're just chunks of meat that she's just butchering.
No, she even, I remember there's a scene where she slices somebody into like 8 pieces and just comments about that, like just like 8 pieces. I forget what she said, but she
because the guy was like, oh, we'll chop her into 8 pieces, and then she's like counting the pieces. Oh, looks like exactly 8 pieces to me there.
and you're right, they look like just chunks of meat at that point. And in fact, in that sequence, I think it was that sequence, or it was a sequence around that. They used a lot of wires in this movie, and apparently one of the stunt women got hit by lightning during one of those scenes. I guess she survived, but I thought that was something that was worth mentioning because people don't normally get hit by lightning doing wire work in these movies. So, or I hope they don't. That's I hope there's not like a rampant plague of people being hit by lightning every time they do this.
Occupational hazard.
But also the special effects in this movie I thought were kind of interesting because they're pretty low key but effective. And I didn't know if anybody, like, even the transformation scene, it's really just like a montage, and I don't know, they slow down the film a little bit or something, and then they just have her change hair. But I thought that some of that stuff kind of worked better than if it was. I don't know. Sometimes these days, a lot of the effects are very overwhelming at times, and in this one, I felt like it was a nice blend of practical effects, camera tricks, and it just all kind of helped create atmosphere.
Yeah, very few, special effects are really needed. I mean, they showcased Qi Wushang's mastery of Qi or telekinesis, whichever way you want to look at it, a few times, and the fact that they didn't use it all the time was sort of added to how the mystique behind it, I think. And just having one person doing sort of out of the ordinary actions made them seem all that much more special and in this case threatening as well, because we have this conjoined twins who with mysterious powers that you're never really sure if it's within the realm of possibility or if it's supernatural in any way. Given that the fact that they're referred to as a demonic cult multiple times throughout the movie, you sort of start wondering if this is as Brendan mentioned earlier, sort of a horror style movie or supernatural movie as opposed to just like a pure martial arts. And the sort of the hair change sequence I think was pretty nicely done as well. I mean, at that point we sort of get the montage showing all the sort of suffering and she's been through, and as well as like all the good times that she shared with Yi Hang, sort of all rolled into one, and and then the sort of the staring into each other's eyes, and her seeing from his expression that he has doubts about her, and we already know that she's explicitly told him that if you start doubting me, I'm gonna go off on you. I hate that.
A key plot point when she brings that up, you're like, uh-oh.
Not very forgiving.
No, she's not. But I think the hair changing montage was very good. It showed that the raw emotions that go through a person can really change them, and in this case it not only changed her emotionally, it changed her physically. So her raw emotions, all the hate, all the love, all the distrust and everything that came to a head in that one scene was brought out into her hair color.
And if I remember from the book, I think she didn't like the hair color change was also something that she just didn't like. Like she was very, upset about it. And so Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say just that she had said in the ancient city that, will you still love me even if my hair turns silver or white? So you knew she wasn't going to like it, getting older, but.
Well, and she, and I think that kind of comes to like how everything in this movie sort of it just feels very well constructed to me, because all that stuff just sort of keeps it, that line obviously is important and everything kind of ties together. But now there was something else I wanted to mention, but I can't remember what it was at this point. This is I don't know if everybody will be following me on this, but when I was watching it this time, I was reminded of the movie Legend when I was watching it. And I was curious if anybody else had number one, maybe people haven't seen Legend because it's so old now, but if anybody felt similarly about the atmosphere and mood of the movie.
I haven't seen it since the 80s, but I would agree with the mood. I remember it well enough to have the feel of the movie, and I'll agree with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
between like the style, because the music in this is like, it's kind of like synthy, like music that we would have tended to see in American movies more in the 80s, but you see it a lot still in Hong Kong movies in the 90s. It was
Vangelis did the score for Legend, if I recall.
Oh, I don't. I used to have the soundtrack actually, but I don't know who did it. But I like the music in this. I thought the music was very fitting for what they were going for.
Yeah, and the point about the music, actually, I think the ending song was actually sung by Leslie Chang.
Yeah, he actually wrote it too. He
wrote the song.
He wrote the music.
Okay.
He was and again, this is from the director's commentary, but he was retired from music at that point, and he agreed to do the song for the movie. And I think he had some stipulation about like they weren't supposed to put it on the VHS version or something. But yeah, no, I'm pretty sure he wrote that, unless Ronnie Yu is lying or wrong. Um,
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Like he is a musical talent, and that's one of the things that he was famous for. So, and speaking of the music, actually, jumping back to the very beginning of the movie, I actually really enjoyed the way they introduced it with the sort of really abstract paintings and how they wove the music in with that. And I thought it set the tone for the movie very well. And yeah, even at that point, I could sort of there was the hint of tragedy I felt in the music and the way they depicted all the images there already. So I thought that was a very interesting part at the very beginning there.
yeah, and I feel, and it kind of had like a wispy quality to it, which a lot of the movie had, and it just, I agree. I think the music really kind of is what initially the first time I ever saw this sold me on the film. That opening line of music, which, as I've said in many of these podcasts, I tend to be a sucker for. But yeah, so I no, I'm just curious. What did you think of the final music? Because that's a very different sounding song than the rest of the soundtrack. So I'm curious if that worked for people or if it didn't work for people.
It worked. The ending was interesting because it, once again, it's like ambiguous, and it kind of, before the credits even roll, the music starts, and you kind of go into that montage of scenes through the movie, and I was like, the music star was making me think, okay, maybe the movie's coming to a close, and you had the montage, and and I'm not used to montages at the end of movies, so I was like, is this him remembering things, and we're going to have more after, or is this just part of the ending of the movie? And so, but like I said, the music was kind of cluing me in that, no, I think that, yeah, and then the credits showed up, and I was like, okay, yeah, it's over. But that was the reaction I had to the music, though.
And I'll have to give it another listen, but I think the lyrics for that song actually matched up with the feeling and emotions you get from the movie pretty well there. But I'll have to have another listen because I've only seen the movie once all the way through, so it'll be interesting to have a revisit to the ending song at some point to see what that sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah, Dion, what about you? How'd you feel about that last song?
I don't know what the words are because they didn't show like subtitles like they do in some movies with the lyrics. But I really liked the song, and I would really like to know what the lyrics were because it was kind of sad to me, but it fit the ending of the movie very well.
Kenny, if you happen to get those lyrics, we can, feel free to pass them to me and I can post them.
Yeah,
don't
I'm fairly
it.
certain I have heard the song in places other than this movie, so I don't know how whether Leslie's stipulation that it will not be released on whatever held held true or very long.
Well, also he did die in 2003, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it was pretty tragic actually. Actually, he has a pretty tragic outcome for his life, and Yemi Lam also has a pretty tragic life story as well. She's still alive, but when I see this movie, I tend to be reminded of that. But yeah, so I wonder if his death might have affected how how easily that music is heard, or if it was just
I don't know. Well, I just know I'm fairly certain my mum has sung this song at karaoke once, at the very least once before in the past. And,
okay.
So, yeah, maybe she might have butchered the song a little bit, but it definitely sounds familiar. I think I've heard it before.
Well, I think in karaoke you're allowed to butcher the songs, yeah. So I did want to revisit the nudity issue because when I was listening to the commentary, the director mentioned his favorite scene in the film is the erotic poison removal scene, the scene where she gets hit with the bolt from Lu Hua and he sucks out the poison basically, which pretty much leads to the scene that Elliot had mentioned in his review. So I thought it was kind of amusing that was one of his favorite scenes. But he also mentioned that that the director himself was surprised how far both of the actors took that scene. I mean, he was pleasantly surprised by it, but I guess they went above and beyond what he was expecting for those scenes. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Did anybody else have any additional thoughts on this movie? I don't know if we covered everything or not.
I don't know. I do like the needle removal scene. It sort of reminds me of the story of the lion with the thorn in its paw, and how the person who removed it got the gratitude of the lion, sort of thing. And it just seems like in this sort of case, she's a wolf girl, and because he's showing her he's being nice to her, and then helping her with her fawn, so to speak. That's sort of maybe why it triggers some of her feelings for her. Because otherwise, I can't really explain how the romance was so explosive.
I think. Oh, well, go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
I mean, because they've met as children, and I don't know if Li Chang would have recognized him as the child who was carrying the little lamb that day. But I think he definitely recognizes her after she starts playing the flute. Love at first sight might just be the best explanation for it. But I do feel like the romance erupted and sped along.
I think what they were going for was there was another scene where they met briefly as well. But before that sequence, and it was all about just sort of the exchange of glances than what they were actually saying. And so I think they, if you focus a little bit on the actor's expression, there is sort of like dialogue being communicated, I think, between them, even in those early scenes when like she's helping him deliver the baby, and they're just kind of looking at each other. That might not be sufficient for what you were saying, but I think that was what the aim was sort of. And also just the need to keep this thing going from point A to point B in a short time.
But I think he recognized her from. I think he probably carried a torch for her, because when he first saw her, I think he was so enamored with her beauty and her command of the flute, and the fact that she was surrounded by these wolves and could control them with the music. I think he was just so enamored with her that it stuck with him all those years. And then when he saw her again, when she was delivering the baby, it all came back to him.
Well, and she did save his life in that scene. And
yes.
And it is, I think it is, like Kenny was saying, I guess it would be like love at first sight, in that, like, the scene where he sees her, she's like spinning around in the air, and like, it's like a very sort of like, like I think meant to be that kind of a moment. So you're probably correct about that. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was an interesting scene because his character is I guess he's trying to liberate a goat that's going to be slaughtered, is what I was able to get from that. And and then he's chased by the wolves, and so he's initially going to put the goat down as a sacrifice to the wolves so he can escape, but he feels bad and he picks up the goat. And he even gave the goat a name. I forget what he called it. I think it was Xiao Yang was the name of the goat. But
Sweet little lamb in Chinese.
Oh, does it? Okay. Oh, so maybe it wasn't a name. Maybe you just called him little lamb. See, I was touched. I thought he gave the lamb a name. But
so did I.
But and then she draws them away with her flute playing. But one other thing I did want to mention before I forget, because this was mentioned in the director's commentary, that scene in the end when the Siamese twins are bouncing around from pillar to pillar, the director said that was literally inspired by a pinball machine, which I thought was funny.
I thought of it as a beach ball kind of thing.
Yeah, well, they look like a big giant beach ball being, bounced around the room. But it's just funny to me because I think, like, if somebody didn't like that scene, their complaint would probably be, "Oh, it looks like a game of pinball," and that was like exactly what
we were going for.
But yeah, I don't. Did anybody else have any additional thoughts?
No, I enjoyed the movie. If I had to score it out of five, I'd say I could definitely give it a four. There are some parts where, I felt like could have been done better, but not none of it was bad. So definitely deserves a four from me out of five.
Yeah, I was impressed with just, as you said earlier, how much they managed to fit into this movie. I mean, it's a very short movie, but it's very full and satisfying for its running length.
I totally agree with the gentleman. I think it's a good movie. They fit a lot in an hour and a half, but it was explained very well, and they did a good job and everything. So it was a good movie.
Yeah, and I would probably score this for me it would be a 5 out of 5. I think just because it's held up for me over the years, and I find that I can rewatch it and it doesn't get dull for me. I find more interesting things about it. But yeah, I would pretty much agree with pretty much what everyone said. But I'd be remiss if we didn't mention that Elliot really did had some issues with the ending and some of the scenes after the middle. And I've seen other people express similar complaints. Most of the reviews that I've found of it have generally been positive, but I will see some negative ones from time to time. So again, the movie is The Bride with White Hair. If we can, we will try to do a review of the sequel or a discussion of the sequel at some point. It may be tricky getting a copy to everybody because it's The Bride with White Hair 2 is kind of hard to get already as it is. So we'll see what we can do. But it's directed by Ronnie Yu. It stars Bridget Lin and Leslie Chung. And it's not available on Prime. If you want to watch it, you can order it on Amazon. Or eBay or whatever. It's available on DVD. And I keep hearing rumors of a Blu-ray that's supposedly very expensive somewhere. But basically it's available on DVD. So all right, we will be back on hopefully or sometime next week. And until then, we will talk to you later. So what were you saying, Kenny?
Yeah, we never really talked about how his martial sister Lu Hua might have had feelings for Yi Hang there. Maybe that might have had some influence on why she treats the wolf girl with so much hostility. Other than the fact that Orthodox sects tend to treat those from other cults and stuff with a wary eye, but she seems to especially have it out for her and doing everything she can to sort of keep Yi Hang and Ni Chang apart.
Well, and you had mentioned the poisoning too, and I think I mean, you know, we were discussing this after we stopped recording, and I think it's probably, you know, worth adding here in the bonus podcast. But Lu Hua's character is, I think, a lot more evil than she comes off on. Like the first time you view this, you're not really, you know, she comes off as like maybe a little bit hostile and angry. But the more and more you think about all the things she does, the more you think, oh, she might be like genuinely evil. Like she's a member of Wudang, but she's apparently uses poison, and we're still sort of trying to decipher exactly what happened. But based on what you're saying, Kenny, it sounds like in the Cantonese version, the when she shows Yi Hang the jade heirloom that he gave to the farmer that she's retrieved, that she's killed the farmer. Whereas in the subtitles we had it looked like she was saying, "I will kill him if you try to give it to him again," or something. But
it was a little bit ambiguous there because the Chinese could have, it could say, if I kill him, then he'll have no use for it, type of thing. Or it could have been, I killed him and he has no use for it. Okay. So it's a little bit up in the air. I'm inclined to say that she killed the farmers just because all the peasants that were shown, like stealing grain from the army and stuff, they weren't from the Central Plains, which is like the main sort of theme here, is that those people in the Central Plains are trying to defend from outsiders, and thus anyone from outside, whether they're old or young or whatever, they're all fair game. Because they're the enemy, and yeah. So I'm thinking from her point of view, I think she would have just killed the man and possibly the baby as well. I don't know how far she'd go. But...
Well, yeah, because so if people just to give context, the scene, there's like a crucial scene where Ni Chung and Yu Hung both save a farmer whose wife has just died in childbirth, and they help deliver the baby. And they give him the baby, and then Yi Hung gives her a jade heirloom that was given to him by Lu Hua, and later in the movie, Lu Hua reveals that she has the heirloom again, and suggests that she either has killed the farmer or will kill the farmer. And if she has killed the farmer, then there's also this baby that whose fate is left, you're sort of wondering about. And I don't know, to me it suggests that she might be a pretty malevolent character in this movie. But I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. But yeah, so I don't know. So we're just throwing this in at the end of the podcast. If you stuck around, you might catch it. And we'll maybe do a few of these in the future as well. So listen to the full distressor music, and you'll get a little bonus each podcast.